Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. It is a great pleasure, indeed, for me to welcome you all for this International Multidisciplinary Conference, organized by our college, Sant Surbanath Ambe Government College of Commerce and Arts, Perne, Goa, in association with Lilavati College of Commerce and Computer Science, Pune. To welcome is to show honor. To welcome is to show integrity. I heartily welcome our chief guest for today's international conference, Dr. Radhika Naik. Dr. Radhika is a coordinator, College Development Council, Goa University, and Principal, Dempo College of Commerce, Bamboli. Dr. Radhika is also the Secretary, Forum of Principals and Management, Goa. Delegates might have met Dr. Radhika earlier or might meet her in the near future, as she is a member of the NEC peer team visiting various colleges in India. I take this opportunity to express my deep appreciation to Dr. Sabadati Silva, Principal, Kare College of Law, Margam, for honoring us with his keynote speech for this international conference. Dr. Sabha is a PhD guide for research scholars in law, affiliated to Goa University, and has served and has several publications to his credit. I also welcome my friend Mandar Brahma, Professor Mandar Brahma, representing Lilavati College, Pune. Mr. Mandar is the Secretary, Mahakard, Pune, and also the Center for Education and Social Development, India. He is also the Charter President for Rotary Club, Pune. I also welcome our resource persons and the chairpersons for today's technical sessions, namely Dr. Subramaniam Bhatt, Principal, Swami Vivekanand College, Bori, Dr. Rodney De Silva, Vice Principal, Damodar College of Commerce, Margam, and Professor Meera Mayekar, Senior Faculty, GVM College, Ponda.
Present here. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present my views on the importance of interdisciplinary studies, particularly in India, taking higher education to greater heights. Respected chief guest of today's function, Dr. Radhika Naik, Dr. Philip, and other dignitaries, noted scholars in the audience. I would like to take this topic in three parts. Historically, what we have been doing, what is the present state today of interdisciplinary studies, and what is the way forward. Historically, the Indian education system has been extremely vast and very rich in considering education as important, and it has been systematic, developed and organized in imparting traditional and to some extent religious education. The Gurukul system of learning was more relevant and effective, in which students were taught orally. In this system of learning, students and teachers resided in the same campus, disseminating knowledge through successive generations. With the threshold of the first millennium was the establishment of major higher education universities in India, like the Ujjain University, Vikramshila University, Nalanda University, and Tarakshila University. During this time, the main subjects of study were philosophy, law, logic, astronomy, literature, and religion, of course, medicine and mathematics as well. Now, the major universities of study imparted a whole lot of particular disciplines. For example, the Takshila University imparted courses on medicine, Ujjain University in astronomy, except for Nalanda, perhaps the only university that imparted courses in almost all of the subjects of study. Now, from British records, we find that during the medieval times, there were the madrasas, literary societies and libraries that were set up in almost all villages in India. In the British-controlled cities of Calcutta, Bombay and Madras, 3 union universities on the pattern of London universities were established. Now, the main motto of these universities was to prepare students for careers in medicine, in law, and for civil services. The British also established the first industrial school in Chennai to promote technical education. There is no denying that modern India education, which we have today, is deeply rooted in the British era. And in this era, the English language was proposed by Lord Macaulay in the 20th century. Now, the same Lord Macaulay has also authored for us, students of law, a very famous Indian Penal Code in the year 1860, which is in force even today. Now, as a result of the introduction of English, we find a whole lot of missionary colleges that got established in India. As far as post-independence era is concerned, the year 1976 is very significant since the Constitution of India was amended. Now, 5 subjects were transferred to the concurrent list from the state list. Concurrent list, as we know, is giving power both to the center and to the state to make law. And this was done so that the central government can take active steps regarding education, which education later on went on to become a fundamental right from the year 2002 by a very famous Article 21A. Thus, education sector came under both the central and the state governments, and under the Ministry of Human Resources Development's Department of Education, the central government as well as the state government jointly coordinated with the technical and higher education by specifying standards, quality standards, and formulating education policies and planning. With this history of higher education system, the current system is chiefly patterned on the British system, although there are few institutions in India, particularly in management and engineering, that follow the US pattern. Institutions of higher education, of course, emphasize on English as a medium of instruction in universities, in colleges, and particularly in technical courses. Now, it may be noted that the English language was again rooted in Indian history and culture, but got modified as per the current existing realities, political theories, and other interests, which I shall not go into. From what I have said thus far, we recognize that education plays an indispensable role in the social and economic development of people and the nation at large. In this regard, the movement of higher education reforms in India in terms of history of disciplinary and, more important, interdisciplinary studies has always remained debatable in a very novel way. The existing separation between the arts and the science streams was then restructured into just 2 parts, that is pure or basic and applied disciplines. And this division of disciplines was predicted upon the ends to which a particular knowledge form could be put into. Now, principles that govern and control all the systems in the universe were then considered as just pure or basic, and instrumentation or applicability of those principles, they came under the applied category of the concerned discipline. So these were the two parts that got classified. However, we find that in course of time, the disciplinary distinctions were no longer simply to do with just methods. Because by this time, the so-called scientific methods had invaded all disciplines, including a conventional humanities subject such as history, where we find that this was a powerful moment in educational development in India. As the old adage goes, the only constant thing in life is change. And the scenario of higher education in India has been constantly changing. The late Professor Yashpal, in his report, in his committee report, titled "The Committee to Advise on Renovation and Rejuvenation of Higher Education" in the year 2009, he commented on regulatory framework for higher education. And to quote, he says, "Where a holistic view of knowledge would demand a regulatory system which treats the entire range of educational institutions in a holistic manner, it is important to note that all of higher education has to be integrated or treated as an integrated whole." Many of you must have heard this lament, which says that what we have currently is a steel box of a system within which there are smaller boxes with no interaction with the outside or with each other. Now, this report further elaborated on the fact that undergraduate programs need to be restructured to enable students to have opportunities to access all curricular areas with a fair degree of mobility. To quote again from the report, "It is highly recommended that normally no single discipline or specialized university should be created. It would mean that students would be exposed to multiple subjects under the roof of one university or one college." Therefore, this report emphasized the need for interdisciplinary experiences. And this should help students sustain themselves, which the report said, when there is a demand of a particular job in the market change. It is asserted that the steady decomposing, if you mind my word, of disciplines into specialities and then of specialities into more specialities operates across universities as an uncontrollable, self-amplifying phenomenon. Disciplinary subdivision is a powerful pressure for departmental substructuring. We sometimes hear of general practitioners, doctors who are general practitioners, who can tackle the patient. But then we hear of specialists and super specialists. We hear of ophthalmic specialists. A time may come when an ophthalmic specialist will be a separate specialist for the left eye and one for the right eye. So in such cases, we find that how far do you go with specialization and how difficult does it become for the utility of that particular subject. So in recent times, interdisciplinary in higher education is often associated with liberal education tradition, which is related to the cultivation of certain values, leadership qualities, critical thinking, knowledge and ideals, and maintaining academic standard. However, there was a controversy for interdisciplinarity, which emerged from altercation, deliberation, reflection surrounding disciplinarity. So what is this disciplinarity? A discipline is supposed to be a knowledge or a concentration in one subjective field of study or interest. But what we find is that the accelerating rates of scientific and technological innovation globalization, hybridization of cultures, new information age, and growing fluidity in employment are among many changes that are portrayed as forces of fundamental transformations in the social and the educational landscape. As a result, it is required to structure the intellectual and educational field. Disciplinarity is now considered outdated and quickly becoming supplanted by three prefixes: multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, and interdisciplinarity. While I understand that your seminar is on multidisciplinarity, I have chosen to speak about interdisciplinarity. And there is a fine dividing line between the three of them. In a disciplinarity study, the researcher's focus is on one area of specialization or domain, as I just mentioned, where there is gaining confidence and comfort in that particular area, and yet not being able to communicate and share knowledge actively with the neighboring fields of knowledge. That is what the disciplinarity study is all about. But in today's scenario, most often problems are less likely to reach up to satisfaction through concentrating only on one discipline. The realization forces us to advance in our thinking beyond what we call single disciplinarity. So what is multidisciplinarity? This study material is approached and applied from various angles, keeping in view the distinctive disciplinarity context. But finally, neither the theoretical context nor the results of the various disciplines are really integrated. This results in chaos. I'm not undermining the seminar, but I'm saying that there is a distinction. They all have their own pros, but it can result in chaos, and it can open many vistas for discussion without any apparent connection, and the researcher sometimes even gets puzzled and demoralized in multidisciplinary studies. In transdisciplinary studies, the study material is worked across and beyond several disciplinary perspectives in an unanimously agreed conceptual framework. Here, the theoretical context and results of the different disciplines are completely amalgamated at the end. The problem can be encountered in the transdisciplinary approach in the nature of assembling and recombination of the information that you draw, and at times the mind could be puzzled about drawing out relevant connection between the element of information, sometimes leading to nowhere, and maybe creation of new knowledge. That's with transdisciplinary. Whereas an interdisciplinary approach produces its very own theoretical, conceptual, and common methodological existence. Therefore, the outcome of an interdisciplinary study for a certain problem is more internally coherent, and it's woven very intricately. Moreover, the focus on synthesis and integration necessary for the cultivation of proficiency in the multiple disciplines cannot be taught within the individual disciplines themselves. The new outcome is more than the sum of the individual parts. It's like 2 plus 2 is 5 when you go through interdiscipline. It is said that this process of synthesis requires an appreciation of the full complexity of the disciplines involved, especially an awareness of what are otherwise often unconscious assumptions. And this is in order to discern the underlying common ground or conflict between their insights. It is in these acts of conciliation and integration of disciplinary insights that the art of interdisciplinary inquiry is fully realized. Unlike disciplinary programs, where only one or the same sort of methodologies or methodological materials are drawn, interdisciplinary programs revolve around multiple methods of theories or theories. Instead of students learning one or two theories or methods in detail, they have to learn the core of many and how these can be integrated. So integration is the paramount importance when it comes to interdisciplinary studies, and if there is a lacuna in it, many theories or methods will be futile for the student. We cannot afford to have that lacuna. The tenacity of the interdisciplinarity can only be accomplished by understanding the how, the why, and the what to integrate as a complete whole or promising something which is innovative. I speak from my experience as a law student with whatever background I had of studies done prior to law. And we find that certain disciplines require a sound knowledge of other disciplines to be acquired. For a legal practitioner, for example, he would need to know many disciplines, not just the statutory or the hollow provisions of the statute which he wants to implement. If you look at law and medicine today, the legal practitioner would need to know the Consumer Protection Act, which is of course a legal document, but he would also need to understand that if he wants to give effect to the Transplantation of Human Organs Act, for example, he would need to know a fair amount of information related to the organs of the human being, their utility, their value, their lifespan, how long and when can there be a transplant, what is an in vivo transplant, what is a transplant done after the demise of a person. Likewise, if a lawyer is looking at law and information technology, he has to know some basics of technology and what a computer would be of use of. If he's looking at intellectual property rights, it is not just knowing about the meaning of patents or of copyrights or designs or trademarks. In patents, he would have to understand the concept of a process in making a product and sometimes a fair amount of chemistry. And even in agriculture, he would need to know about what plant varieties, what seeds are all about, and then only understand the link between agriculture and the law related to agriculture.
As well as in the audience, it gives me immense pleasure to be with all of you here, particularly because this conference is being organized by my very dear friend and colleague, Dr. Philip, Principal of the SSA College, Government College, Vinoda, Pune. I have worked very closely with Dr. Philip as colleagues in the Teachers Association, and I'm very proud to say that in Goa, many of the teachers are now heading the institutions, and so we have a number of leaders who were apparent in the teacher movement who have now crossed over to become principals of the various institutions. I want to congratulate you, Principal Philip, for this initiative, and I want to wish you all the best for your tenure. I'm sure that this is just a beginning, a very, very ambitious beginning to the many things that you are going to do as principal of the Pune College.